almost 3-year-old son, Leo, slipped away from his babysitter and was lost outside all alone. He managed to get out of the apartment, go through a parking lot, and start down the road towards the one thing in life that brings him the most joy, the playground. Now, he was only gone for about 20 minutes, but those 20 minutes were filled with frantic phone calls and desperate searching, trying to find little Leo. Now, thankfully, he was found, safe and sound, without even a clue what kind of danger he had been in. But can you imagine how terrifying it is for a very small person who you love dearly to be out in the world with no protection, all the kinds of dangers that could happen to him? I, for one, am very grateful that my son who was lost was found, and he was found perfectly fine. Today, in Luke 15, we're going to hear stories that Jesus tells about things that were lost being found. And we will see how God responds to our lostness with relentless love. God responds to our lostness with relentless love. Luke 15 begins with a fascinating bit of context that tax collectors and sinners were drawing close to listen to Jesus. Now, tax collectors and sinners were not just marginalized people. They were not just the poor. These were people who had purposely chosen a lifestyle that separated them from their community. They were like loan sharks or arms dealers. They knew what they were doing was hurting people they were supposed to love. And in a culture that actually upholds community over individualism, this was almost unforgivable. So the religious leaders, the Pharisees, the teachers of the law, they didn't just dislike the tax collectors and sinners. They actually despised them. And Jesus welcomed the tax collectors and sinners in. It's like he opened the door for them to come back into community, to come back into belonging, to come back into life. And the religious leaders responded to Jesus with grumbling, with complaining. The word grumbling that Luke uses is the same word used to describe the Israelites responding to Moses in the desert. The Israelites grumbled against Moses, and the religious leaders grumbled against Jesus. So Jesus responds to the religious leaders with parables, with stories. Now, the tax collectors and sinners were listening too, but Jesus specifically is talking to the religious leaders. And parables are kind of like a story that arrests you because it takes your expectations and it flips it upside down. And you're left almost breathless and surprised and hopefully convicted. So Jesus tells the stories: the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost son. And one more thing Jesus does that's fascinating is he begins each story by inviting the listeners to step into the story themselves as if they are the main character. He does that by using phrases like, which one of you, which man or which woman. And so the audience, these religious leaders, have to ask themselves, would I do this? Would I, as an owner of 100 sheep, exactly 100 sheep, would I leave 99 and go looking for the one? And those listening to the story would have to say, no, I would not leave 99 and go looking for the one. Because you know, at the end of the day, how many sheep I would have? I would have one, because the other ones would be gone. I would have one sheep. In some cultures, when a sheep runs away, they actually kill it. Because if it came back into the fold, it would probably lead the rest of the sheep away with it. That one sheep is not worth the danger. It is not worth the risk of losing the rest of the flock. But this owner of sheep, Jesus says, actually risks everything. He risks it all to find the sheep that is lost, to bring it home, and then he throws a celebration so extravagant, it probably cost more than the sheep was worth. And so God celebrates when what is lost is found. Now, those who are listening have to take a step back and ask themselves, is there a celebration going on in heaven right now because of what I have done to seek those who are lost and bring them back? And Jesus doesn't stop there. Yes, we see that the owner of the sheep had relentless love to go seek what was lost, just like God has relentless love to seek what is lost. And then Jesus says, what woman? Now this already is a little bit shocking because it's very easy for us to connect God with a shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd. There's plenty of stories about God being a shepherd. But could we ever imagine God as a dishwashing, clothes cleaning, child rearing housewife? Those who are listening to this story are already a little bit shocked at that. But the fascinating thing is that the story about a woman who seeks diligently for a coin that is lost is the same as a rabbinical story already happening at that time. The rabbis would talk about a man who searches his home for a coin that is lost, just like you should search the law for revelation and understanding. And so Jesus takes their expectation about a man seeking for a coin and he flips it on its head and he says, what woman? Would God be like a woman seeking diligently with everything at her disposal to find the coin that is lost? So those listening to the story have to put themselves again in the shoes of the woman. Is there a celebration going on in heaven? Probably worth more than the coin that is lost because of all of the work I have done to find what is missing. And then Jesus doesn't stop there. He keeps going. And the next story he tells is not about a man or a woman. It's deeper in identity that we can all understand. He says, what father? We know now we're not losing sheep. We're not losing coins. We're losing a child. What father with two sons? Now the story of the lost son is one that most of us know. And I'm actually going to skip over it. There's a lot there. We'll have to get into it another day. When the son is lost, he leaves home, he squanders the father's wealth, he returns, the father welcomes him, and throws an amazing, extravagant party. And while the party is raging on, the older son is lost. The older son is lost. His relationship with the father is broken. And the father goes to him. The father seeks out the lost older son. And he says, everything that I have is yours. The relentless love that I have for the younger son is the same as the relentless love I have for you, my older son. And then Jesus does something remarkable. He takes the story to a climax, and then he stops. There's no resolution. We don't know what happens. Does the older son become found? So the religious leaders listening to the story are then faced with this question. Am I the older son? Am I the one refusing to be found? God responds to our lostness with relentless love. Like the owner of the sheep, he risks everything for us. Like the woman, he used everything at his disposal to diligently seek what is lost. And like the father, he offers everything that he has to find the son. God responds to our lostness with relentless love. And he invites us to respond to others' lostness with relentless love. There's a story about John, the apostle. John, the disciple who Jesus loved. After he was very old and he had been exiled in Patmos, he was actually released from Patmos. And he came back to the church and began to teach again. And he took a young convert under his wings and he invested in him and he loved him as his own son. And John was called away to teach in other churches, and so he entrusted his young disciple to the hands of a bishop to continue discipling him. John was gone for a while. When he came back, he asked the bishop what happened. Where's this young man? And the bishop said, weeping and anguish, he is dead. And John was shocked. What happened to him? And the bishop said, he is dead to God. He got involved with his old friends, and they took him into this life of murderous thievery, and he actually became their leader, and now he established this hideout on top of the mountain outside the city, and no one can reach them. But John was not dismayed. Old man John asked for a horse, got on the horse, and rode as fast as he could up the mountain to find his lost son. When he got there, the thieves captured him and took him to their leader, this young man that John had discipled. And when he saw the leader, he cried out, my son, I love you, come home. And that leader of a murderous band of thieves got up, turned around, and started to run away as if he was terrified of John. And John didn't stop. Old man John picked up his skirts and started running after this disciple. After a while, the disciple finally stopped running, broke down into tears, and John embraced him. He said, my son, come home. And he did. That young disciple left his life of thievery, returned back to his faith, and became a devoted disciple of Jesus again. The relentless love of John, because of the relentless love of God, rescued the son who was lost. So brothers and sisters, we're left with the questions. Who are you in this story? Are you the owner of the sheep who's willing to risk everything to seek what is lost? Or are you the sheep who is lost? Are you the woman who uses everything at her disposal to diligently seek what is lost? Or are you the coin that is lost? Are you the father who offers everything he has because of his relentless love for his son? Are you the younger son who has come home? Or are you the older son still outside? Jesus is inviting us this morning to respond to God's relentless love. God responds to our lostness with relentless love. And he invites us to respond to others' lostness with relentless love. I'm going to take a moment right now and actually ask you to bow your heads, close your eyes, quiet your heart. I want you to pray and ask God, who am I in this story? If you are one who is lost, will you respond to God's relentless love for you this morning? If you are one who has been found, if you are already in the kingdom, would you ask God to give you the name or the face of someone He's calling you to pursue with relentless love? Someone who is lost. I'll give us a moment to pray, and then I will close us with a prayer in just a moment. God, thank you for speaking to us in this time of silence. Lord, I ask that you would bless my brothers and sisters with courage to say yes to you, to say yes to being found, and to say yes to relentlessly pursuing the lost because of your relentless love. In Jesus' name I pray.